Hey, it's Brian Bennett from Strategy for Churches, and I want to walk you through one of the key metaphors that we utilize at Strategy for Churches to help us wrap our minds around and spark creativity and discernment for the strategy and the strategic process. And that is thinking of strategy as a raft going down a river. So if you've ever been whitewater rafting and in a good river, I've been to the New River a few times in West Virginia. Then pictures like this speak to your experience. Definitely mine. The New River has a lot of good rapids. Many times in church ministry, directing the raft, as we'll talk about in a minute, which is our church down the river, can feel a lot like this picture where the water's pouring into the boat. The rapids are pretty big. It's both at the same time exhilarating and a beautiful moment, a sweet privilege to be the sent people of God. At the same time, it's overwhelming. It's there's times of confusion and chaos as we seek to discern. So that's the metaphor that we're going to use. The predominant metaphor that we're going to use is the church strategy as rafting down a river. And there's going to be a few key aspects of it. So the first aspect is the raft. As you think about rafting down the river, the raft obviously is key to have a good raft. And so the raft speaks to who our church is, who we are as the people of God, what gifts, what passions, what burdens God has gifted to us as this particular local church. And we believe that there are biblical anchors that every church has to discern. What are the biblical anchors that God has given to all churches everywhere? And we also believe that there are distinctives that God gives, a distinct personality, a distinct culture, and distinct gifts. Now, obviously, he gives all different spiritual gifts to every church, all individuals within churches. But we believe that churches take shape with not only spiritual gifts, but also larger passions and gifts and unique gifts and strengths and burdens, callings that God has placed on that people in that community. So as we look at the raft, we have to think about, hey, does our raft has a hole in it that needs patched? How are our oars? What's our raft? What are the capabilities of our raft? Is it made for the big waves? Is it made for the shallow water? How will we best maneuver this raft as we think about being the sent people of God, his bride, the church? And so the raft speaks to our church, the strengths, the weaknesses, the distinct DNA, our unique profile, our distinct profile, our health and our vitality, our multiplication, all of those things speak to our church as the raft. Another key aspect of this metaphor is the river. And so obviously the raft is made for the river. And the same is true of us. The church is the people of God who are called to Christ and are formed into this resurrection new community who are to remain in the river. They're not to leave the river. They're not to try to run away from the river, but to remain in the river. But they've got to figure out how to be who they are in the river, how to be the people of God through the rapids. And so the river speaks to various aspects as we think about our community. And so the river, if we think of through the lens of our community, what are the values of our community? What are the gathering places of our community? What are the stories being told? What's success look like if you ask the average person? And so many times there's different people groups within our community. So if we put on the lens of a local missionary, who are the people groups within our community? That's all. When we think of the river, those are all part of that. Another key part of the river that we'll talk to more in a different section on the rocks are the challenges. And so what are the trends that are happening in our river? What are the forces, whether they're opportunities to be seized or they're challenges to be avoided? So those are all key aspects as we think about that. The third piece is what I just spoke to, which is the rocks. As we think about the rocks, these are the challenges and the issues. So it could be a local challenge. It could be an economic challenge. There could be political challenges. There could be social challenges, demographic changes in our community. There could be a shifting of the demographics of our community, an aging population, a younger population, different primary language speaking, changes in the tone of the religious tenor, the religious soil of our community. All of these things could be rocks, but with every rock, if we were really having our kingdom lens on, what we'll see is there's an opportunity. So every time there's a shift in our community, every time there's a downturn in the economy, there's fresh opportunity there if we have eyes to see the bridges that we can build. Now, that's not to shortchange the feeling that we have of the challenge, but if we once we mourn the loss of what was, if we can put on fresh glasses and see with God's vision, we'll see that there's fresh opportunity when the main plant in our town leaves and there's a lot of joblessness. How can we minister? How can we show up in a unique way and help others, minister to them comprehensively? When there's a demographic change in our community, how can we reposition ourselves within our community and to best minister to that changing demographic? So rocks could be financial challenges. They could be all the different array of challenges that I spoke to, and your challenges are going to be different than another church's challenges, likely. There's, of course, shared challenges as we think about making our way down the river. And if you look at this picture, man, there's some pretty big rocks and some pretty narrow passageways, and that can speak to what it's like to be everyday missionaries on the journey as the people of God, and especially for those who are called to lead foot washers, who are called to lead the body. That can be quite the challenge to try to navigate, help the body navigate through those narrow passageways. So we've got the raft, the river, the rocks, and next is the possibilities. As I said, next to every rock is a passageway. And if you look at the river, every rock, some of these big rocks, and some of the passageways are narrow, but there's possibilities. And sometimes as you look at that center screen, there's two possibilities around that big rock. You go to the left, you could go to the right. There's another rock right in front of it, and you can see that raft took to the right. Another raft could have gone to the left. And so there's different possibilities, and we have to biblically and prayerfully and communally discern what are the possibilities that God's particularly calling us to, because he's not calling us to every possibility. He has other local communities that he has called for some of those possibilities. So what is the possibilities that God has called us to as a particular church, as a distinct people? And we believe that every church complements one another. And so we need to make sure that we're running in our lane well. Now we're in the biblical anchors, but we're also in tune with our unique profile as a church and the uniquenesses of our community, the needs, the opportunities, the bridges, so that we can choose the right possibilities. Now, some of these possibilities are going to be local, some of them are going to be national in scope, and some of them are going to be global by nature of the church's mission. And so we might have global possibilities, everything from utilizing technology to expand the reach, to partnering with mission organizations, to sending missionaries, and all kinds of creative ways of globally, but both locally. There's a lot of creative ministry and missional living happening every single day across the United States and across the world. So we've got to think creatively. As we hear in Ephesians, God can do more than we can ask or imagine. And so let's believe and think and see the possibilities with our kingdom lenses. Here's the last piece that we'll talk about, and there's lots more ways to tease out this metaphor, but there's other rafts on the river. You can see the one in the top of the screen and the one at the bottom. And for us, especially typically in the United States church, and it may be true around the world, but particularly for the United States, we've really made progress, but we have more to do. And shifting our thinking from seeing other churches as competitors to really understanding and believing from a core place that other churches are collaborators in the kingdom. We're not in a competition, but we actually are collaborators, and not one church can't reach every county. It's just not the way that's going to work. And so it's going to take every church in that county to reach that area. And when we really shift to see with God's eyes and God's bigger agenda, then we're ready to start thinking in fresh ways about partnership. Now, the partnership, the other rafts on the river with other churches particularly is what I'm speaking to here. And so how can we partner? I remember rafting. We would take time to share food at lunch. They would share medical kits. We'd share other resources. We'd take on other rafters if they got knocked out of the boat. All kinds of what we'd reposition rafters if there's a stronger rower here and a stronger rower there. Now that could mean all kinds of things for us, but we've got to think through the lens of what does it look like to collaborate? What does it look like to prayerfully build smart collaborations? Not just speaking of partnering with everyone. Once again, we've got to understand our unique profile as a church, but any way that we can collaborate, we want to lean into the bigger kingdom agenda in our community to get greater synergy for the sake of reaching our communities with the good news of the kingdom. Now, obviously, we should, may not be obvious, but there's other possibilities of partnering with nonprofit organizations ministries, but also government nonprofits and businesses and others in our community who may not share our beliefs about who Jesus is, but who are willing to partner with us and who may be people of peace in our town that we can partner with. So we've got the raft, we've got the river, we've got the rocks, we've got the possibilities in the other raft. At Strategy for Churches, we are absolutely committed to walking with you. We've created a process, and that's our primary thing that we're here to serve you with, is a process that takes the guesswork out of creating great strategy. There's a series of exercises and prompts, and we will train your facilitator within your team, or even better yet, and what we recommend is pulling in a facilitator from another church in town. We will train them and help them sharpen up as they get ready to lead, or we're happy to bring a facilitator from our team to join you. And we also have cohorts for leaders post for strategic planning to help you stay focused and overcome obstacles with your plan. So as you think about that, we're here to walk beside you to help your team row together so that you can harness your distinctive profile to reach your local and global ministry context, so that you can find your strategic position. And that way God can be glorified, Jesus can be revealed, and the nations can be blessed. So we're happy it's our heartbeat to do that. Any way that we can serve you, whatever that means, whatever that looks like, we're here to serve you. You can see contact information there. It'd be helpful if I move this out of the way, right? Contact information, phone numbers, emails, and web. So let's have a conversation. And we'd love, even if it's just a question to kick around, if you're facing a challenge, pick up the phone, give us a call, email us. We'd love just to bat that question back and forth, because our heartbeat is really to serve the kingdom fully, and to serve you and to see God's mission go forth.